This week in the conversation, I am welcoming from Boston, Massachusetts, Mark Budman, a prolific author who wears many hats. He's an engineer. He is an inventor who holds 6 patents. He's a photographer. He speaks multiple languages. And like me, he's an immigrant. But before we get into the video, I just want to remind everybody, it's important to subscribe to this channel. And if you do, don't forget to click the notification bell so that way, every time a video is posted, it'll go directly into your portable. So let's get started. Again, my name is Ardain Isma, and I am the chief editor for CSMS Magazine. I am here this afternoon with a very important personality, an impeccable author. His name is Mark Budman. Mark, welcome to the conversation.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me to this meeting. I really appreciate your time, and I hope I would be helpful for you and for your audience.
Great. Okay, so to begin with, I am very impressed with your book titled An Accidental American Odyssey. And what kinds of book is this? Is it a collection of short stories?
Yes, this book is a collection of short stories. I've been a short story writer for a very long time. I also penned a novel, and I have this novel published back in 2008. And also I was a co-editor of several anthologies of short stories by multiple authors. But this is my first solo short story collection, meaning that I am the only author there, because in my previous anthologies, I was an editor. I was not, it was not my stories. It was the stories I selected and put together with my co-editor. Usually we work as a team because to handle multiple authors is difficult for one person. It's difficult for two also, but especially for one. But this is a solo short story collection that I think, if I recall correctly, is 28 stories. And they're united by one theme. It's a theme of immigration, because you probably noticed by my accent, I'm an immigrant, a first-generation immigrant.
Okay, great. Me too. I am a first generation of an immigrant from the Caribbean. And I understand you are from Eastern Europe.
Yes, I came from what used to be the Soviet Union. Of course, I came to the United States back in 1980. Then the Soviet Union was still a single country. Now it broke up in many countries, and the place which I was born in, it's called the Republic of Moldova, that became an independent country. And so this is, and probably not a lot of people know that, but even that country, it's now broken down in two, even though it's a very tiny country, but it's broken in two. Which is, nobody recognized that breakaway part of it, but it really is two. And it has another big distinction. It's the poorest country in Europe.
What I know, that there is a Moldovan community in Jacksonville. I know the relatives, the parents, and husband and sisters. They all live in Jacksonville. So yeah. So just to continue, I know you wear many hats. If you would like to tell the audience of CSMS Magazine, what are the hats that you wear? Because I know you are an inventor, you're a photographer.
Yes, I am actually was trained as engineer, and I worked back in the Soviet Union before I immigrated. I worked there as an engineer, and then I came to the United States, and I continued to be an engineer. I worked for a company which, at the time, it was very famous. It's still famous enough. It's called IBM. You probably have heard about that. So IBM now is a service company, but at the time when I was working there, they were a hardware company and making computers. So I was there. And then they started to close the business because they switched from hardware to software to services, and they laid me off back in 2002, and I started a new profession. So I became a medical interpreter. So
Okay.
that's my first head was an engineer. My second head was the medical interpreter. And all this, I wear the writer's hat in addition to
That's what I
that.
was gonna say. So all this falls under the hat, the big
Right,
hat, which is
right. It's a multiple heads. It's a
exactly,
head tower.
exactly.
And of course, a photographer. I mean, always love photography.
Mm.
But that's not enough. For 20 years, I was publishing a magazine. So I was also a publisher. It's a magazine of flash fiction called Vestal Review, which I kind of retired from publishing last year. The magazine is still being published, but under a different chief editor.
Okay.
So let's count: writer, photographer, engineer, editor,
Wow.
and an interpreter.
Wow.
Right.
So many of them.
I counted 5 so far. But that's not enough. If 5 hats is not enough, then while I was working as engineer, I was an inventor also. I
Wow.
have 12 United States patents to my name. So,
Really?
right, yeah, it's all listed. If you go to my website,
Okay.
markbudman.com, it has a link to all my patents. So
Wow.
6 hats.
I mean, you are an impeccable individual. We rock
Oh,
all of
thank you.
you. So let's get back. There's one story within the accidental American Odyssey. It's titled The Perfect Wine. I read the short story from the beginning to the end. I was very intrigued by the name, the waitress. And all the way to the end of the story, you never mention the name of that waitress. You describe the waitress perfectly well, but the name was never revealed. Was that a particular reason why you
Yes,
would
yes.
thought?
A lot of my stories, short stories especially, I don't name the characters if I could get away with that. Of course, in a novel, you cannot get away with that
I
because
know.
there are too many people. So when you say she or he, that eventually you get your reader will get lost. But here, I mean, I didn't want to have them very specific. I wanted to show them as a broad portrait of
Okay.
a type of a person.
Okay.
But the waitress was curious person. She was interesting. She was beautiful. She was exotic. She was all those things that to another protagonist, the manager of the restaurant,
Mhm.
he was very attractive to her. But again, she was didn't want to concentrate on one specific individual. I wanted to show a broad picture of a type of a person, and that's why I didn't name her. So that's, as I said, happened to a lot of my stories. I want to have a broader type of a person rather than a narrow.
And there's another question I want to ask you on the same story. The way you describe the manager, secretly in love with the waitress, are you trying to show the vulnerability when it comes to an immigrant working in the United States, especially in the early years?
Yes, that's yes. This manager is. I'm trying to. When I create a character, I try to have a multi-dimensional character. I
Okay.
don't want to have somebody which is pure evil or pure goodness,
Okay.
right? Right. I want to have a person who combines a lot of qualities.
Okay.
There is a principle called Pareto principle, which people might not know it by that name, but it's a rule of 80-20. So
Okay.
let's say they say 80% of the work at the company is done by 20% of the people. That's a very
Yeah,
that's a common thing, but it's called Pareto principle. So a person could be 80% good but 20% bad, or the other way around. It could
right,
be yes,
right,
80% bad but
right.
20% good. There is always, not always, but most of the time, there is always some goodness in even a bad person, some
Right.
badness in a good person. So
Perfect.
same thing here. If you look at the manager, he's he's a good person, but he has a lot of evil in him too. If you carefully look under, you would see what some of the things, like what he did to his wife, and even how he treats this he treats his waitress whom he loves. But why does he love her? That he does not love her as a woman, but he loves her as a stereotype.
Uh-huh.
That's the thing.
Uh-huh.
And yes, so this is a complicated issue, and I just wanted to have it such a way that this is my principle of writing, that I put something on the surface which everybody could see, but then I would call it what they call it Easter egg. I find an Easter egg surprise that if you if you go a little deeper, you would find something there which you might not notice at the first glance, but something which makes this character much more complicated than you originally thought.
Uh-huh.
So yes, so they are. He thinks about her as a stereotype, but of course she's not a stereotype. She's a live person, and she's
Exactly.
a complicated, complex person. He reduces it to some fantasies, and that the fantasies of what an Eastern woman would look like, and he doesn't even know that, because what he's fantasizing about a kind of an immigrant woman, which is a blend of many cultures.
Right.
Because if you notice that he thinks about that in terms of 1001 night, even though it has nothing to do with her being Chinese immigrant, but
Yeah.
he's creating a fantastic picture of her that
Yeah.
it is not really grounded in the reality.
Okay, I got you. Of course, it's fiction. So,
Right.
yeah. Um, I know you have another book. Title, I wrote it down, is the Imperfect Armor.
Imperfect armor,
Armor,
yes,
yeah.
armor.
Mhm.
That book is still in. I mean, I finished, and I'm shopping for an agent and a publisher. This is a completely different type. So this is. I am wearing many hats, as I mentioned before, but I wear several smaller type of hats in fiction because I write in different genre.
Right.
This 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 Odyssey is a literary fiction mostly. It's
Right.
not necessarily, because I have a lot of stories there which could be classified as magic realism. But this Imperfect Armor is kind of between fantasy and science fiction.
Uh-huh.
Because yes, so this is a story which is taken in a mythical Eastern European country,
Mhm.
and a country which does not exist, and it's a country, totalitarian country. There is a civil war going on,
Mhm.
and there is a person there, a young guy,
Uh-huh.
who he studied in America. He came back, and he is kind of wants to fight this regime, but he doesn't know how. And he stumbles upon this armor, which is armor. It's supposed to be. It's a fantastic armor. It protects against any weapon. It's a real weapon, a future weapon, any kind of weapons,
Uh-huh.
and it's only tuned to his DNA, meaning that it protects only him, because he's a direct descendant of an ancient queen, and that queen got this armor. So it's a complicated plot, but it has totally different from this American Odyssey, but still. It's what they call in publishing, it's a crossover story.
Okay.
So it's not pure fantasy, it's not pure science fiction, but it's a crossover because it's kind of literary fiction as well. Because even though it has a plot, it has a lot of action, but still it's described in a literary language. So that's something which I'm now shopping for a publisher or an agent.
Okay, just before we get to that, so since we know fiction reflects reality, so which means let me ask you this: do you see yourself in this character?
I always see myself in the characters, but My characters are a blend of different people. Of course, this is some kind, on one hand, it exaggerated me, so something which I could have been if I did some things right.
Okay.
But on the other hand, it exaggerates not only my good parts, but exaggerates my bad parts too. So
Okay.
those characters, they do something which I would never done myself. But exaggerate some tendency. Let's say I'm getting angry, but this person, if I'm getting angry, I take control of myself. This
Right.
person, if that person gets angry, it goes all over the board. This is
Yeah.
right, exaggerated. So
Right.
it's me, but it's exaggerated me.
Right. Now let's go back to the publishing part of it. You say you're shopping right now for a publisher. You've published when you published the Accidental American Odyssey, wasn't it with a publisher?
Yes. Yes, I actually had several books with different publishers, but this publisher, Accidental American Odyssey, which comes out in July,
Mm-hmm.
it's with the University Press, and this University Press publishes only
Right.
literary fiction. It doesn't
Fiction,
publish.
correct. I got you.
I could try. That's a good thought. I could try them, but here's the thing: is that they're they bought two books of mine. There is another book which also comes on the subject of immigration, which
Right.
is kind of continuation of Accidental American Odyssey.
Right.
So they already have booked for two books. So let's talk about even if I'll take this one, it will be 3 years before they publish. I don't want
Right.
to wait that long.
No, that's true. Wow.
Yes. By the way, this is my book, and
Okay. I
I
was going to
got
actually
the
show it to the
RC
viewers. Yeah, exactly.
ARC
Right.
copy.
Right. So let me ask you something, Mark. I know that you do have on your website, I see you also have a section. It's called a first paragraph contest. As a matter of fact, there's one of the authors is I've already interviewed in the conversation. Her name is Tracy Fletcher, and I saw her. I said, I recognize this name. Yeah. So how did you come to this to create this section for your?
Yes, this was a try. As I said, I published a magazine for 20 years and I stopped publishing it because it's a lot of work and I just don't have time to do that type of work. And but I stopped publishing, but then I decided that I'll do something a little bit because it's not a big magazine, but a little bit. And I thought that I'll spend a little money. It's not, something which a contest, which is free, because usually when somebody announces a contest, they charge a fee, and based on those fees, they pay you a prize.
Right.
And I thought I'll spend a little bit of my own money, and I'll do that. But it didn't go anywhere because I didn't get enough participants, and this is just kind of sitting there waiting for more participants. But the idea was that do for me a little bit of publishing and give people an opportunity to show off their work, and even to make some kind of take some out some cash prize at the end.
Well, that's a great thing to do. It's great for encouraging, especially young authors or new authors, to make them understand that their works also, speak volumes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, let's put literature aside for a second, something I always do in the conversation, Mark. I know you wear many hats. You already told me. But there's one thing you have not mentioned, which is cuisine. Remember, I told you I have friends from Moldova, and then they know how to cook. I know you're not a woman, but I can cook Haitian cuisine. At least my wife, I don't want her to hear that, but I can survive in the Haitian cuisine. But what about you?
I don't cook mostly, but I do a little bit. The food that my wife and I eat it's the food we are eating, the most basic type of food, the food which you could, by looking at it, you could see the ingredients.
Okay.
So if you eat salmon, there is nothing on it. It's just a piece of salmon. Maybe it's on a bed of vegetables. So just bake, put it in the oven,
Okay.
cut some vegetables, put a piece of salmon upside down with the
Right.
skin, so the skin will go up, so it'll remain moisture, and bake it. That's our traditional. The other thing I do, that's my personal dish. I cut beets. And I cut summer squash,
Okay.
and I make them very thin pieces, like potato chips.
Okay.
Like potato, they're not even potato chips, like sticks, potato sticks. And I cut them. I put some olive oil, and then I add a little bit maybe of spice, not much, because I am not and I bake it. I put it under 400 degrees, 50 minutes. And I don't know but why, but it's so delicious that I give it to people, and they express, "Where did you buy that?" I said, "I didn't buy it. I baked it myself."
But let me ask you
And
something. Is this part of the traditional Moldovan cuisine?
no, I made it up myself because I just wanted to get the healthy. I started it with a healthy. I wanted to get something healthy,
Okay.
so that beets, they lower blood pressure, and they're good for your digestion. And so the summer squash. I didn't expect it to taste so good, because they usually say that the healthy food doesn't taste good.
Exactly.
Right, but I am whatever I do that, it proves the opposite, that it could be a win-win situation. It could be
Can
that
you
they
write a
can.
short story based on that?
I should, right? It could be that based on my experience, it could be that healthy food tastes good.
Now let me ask you something, because we're running out of time.
Yes.
What I want to ask you, you said that you follow the fine American tradition as an immigrant. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
Because I came in when I was very young to this country, and I could not speak English when I came to the country. I had to learn from scratch.
Right.
Basically, almost everything, from language to culture, you name it. So is that what you're talking about? The fine American tradition? You learn the language, the culture, you blend.
Yes, that's what exactly I'm talking about. There's nothing, I'm not inventing anything new when I'm saying that, right? You came, you're a total stranger. You don't know anything about this. You read a little some in the books. Maybe you saw a movie, which is calls this a fiction. The books are fiction. The movies are fiction. It's not the description of the country. So you learn the language, and you become a person which is becomes almost like a native born person.
Right.
So that's your goal. You become here, and you'll say, yeah, you have an accent, but other than that, you're an American. So
Right.
that's right. That's what I'm talking about. Following the fine American tradition of an immigrant.
Now, my other questions, because you mentioned magical realism, and there's one author who's who's renowned for his magical realism, is Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who's a Nobel laureate. I love his book. He's the author of 100 Years of Solitude.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you plan on continuing with your magical realism on your writing?
Yes. Not every story, but most of my stories has a blend of magical realism. Even this Imperfect Armor, which is kind of a fantasy or a kind of a science fiction, it could be also said that this is kind of magical realism, because magical realism, it gives you wings. It lets you fly. And now sometimes I think that just walking on Earth, it's a little bit boring. So you have to have you need to soar sometimes.
Exactly.
And that gives you you need to soar as an author. And the reader, for a reader, it gives you a perspective from a higher up, so which is also very interesting for them. So that's a win-win situation. You benefit yourself as an author, and you benefit your reader.
Okay,
So,
great. My other questions and last question. I know every writer has his preferred author. Some writers who come to the conversation will tell me that they don't just have one, they have many. So do you have a preference? Is there a particular person, an author, that you consider your preferred one?
yes, there is a Russian author named Bulgakov, and he, I know it's not very known in the United States, this book. I don't know about Asia, but it's called Master and Margarita. It's a magical realism story. It's not even a novel, it's a novella. It's a short one. It's about the devil coming back to Earth with his helpers, and he meets to a couple, master. So he's and man, we don't even know much of his name. He's a master, and Margarita is his love interest. And also, there is a parallel story. It's kind of it's a short novella, but it's a parallel story describing the life of Jesus Christ, who meets him, the same one 2,000 years ago. So, yeah, I know. Have you heard this about Master and Margarita? But if you haven't, I very recommend for you to read, because it's available in English translation.
Oh, great. Okay, I will. But I get it. Now, my last question. You and I are immigrants, and I know that when immigrants come to this country, they have a lot of big dreams, and not all dream or every dream, comes to be a reality. If there is an immigrant watching us now, and who would like to embark upon a journey to teach the world about, the Odyssey that you described, what message would you?
I would say that the biggest message that would be that don't give up your ideals, don't sell yourself cheaply, don't sell yourself at all. So that be what you are, and be truthful, be good to people, because if you help someone, it's not necessarily is that this person will help you, but in the end, somebody else will help you as well. So this is, I think that to be good to people is beneficial not only to them, but in the end is beneficial to you. And you have to remember that.
Thank you so much. With that, I just have to say it has been such a pleasure to sit down and have such a wonderful conversation with author Mark Budman.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for spending your time with me, and I appreciate the opportunity.